Well, hey there, writer. Welcome to the Resilient Writers Radio Show. I'm your host, Rhonda Douglas, and this is the podcast for writers who want to create and sustain a writing life they love. Because, let's face it, the writing life has its ups and downs, and we want to not just write, but also to be able to enjoy the process so that we'll spend more time with our butt in chair getting those words on the page. This podcast is for writers who love books and everything that goes into the making of them. For writers who want to learn and grow in their craft and improve their writing skills. Writers who want to finish their books and get them out into the world so their ideal readers can enjoy them. Writers who want to spend more time in that flow state. Writers who want to connect with other writers to celebrate and be in community in this crazy roller coaster ride we call the writing life. We are resilient writers. We're writing for the rest of our lives, and we're having a good time doing it. So welcome, writer. I'm so glad you're here. Let's jump right into today's show. Well, hey there, writer. Welcome back to another episode of the Resilient Writers Radio Show. I'm so glad you're here. So this is something new for me. As you may know, if you've listened to the show before, I normally just do audio. So you subscribe to your podcast platform or you go to my website and you can just click a button and listen to the audio. Or if you use podcasts regularly, of course, you can follow or subscribe and they are automatically downloaded every time I publish a new episode. But now in 2026, I've decided I'm going to bring in some video. I think that one of the great things about video is it helps you connect a little more. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about AI and creative writing. And I think in the age of AI, the human is even more important. And so I'm excited about people being able to see me and connect with me on video in a way, and with the authors that I interview in a way that, audio alone doesn't allow for. So this is a solo episode. I want to get into some topics around AI. But in shows to come, I will continue to be interviewing authors about their own experiences of writing books. And so you can expect to see video and audio. Yeah. New year, new me. What can we say? So today I want to talk about AI, and I just want to give you a heads up. This is not a pro AI, use AI for your creative writing kind of episode. I've been thinking about it a lot. I have friends and writers that have been in my programs who have used AI in the service of finishing their books. And it's something I've now thought a lot about. And I come down on the side of, yeah, no, for me, this is a personal thing. So if you are pro AI, I do want to give you some guidance. There's a woman I know, her name is Ana Del Valle, and she runs something called the Novelist Studio. So if you go to thenoveliststudio.com, she has something called the AI Creative Writing Academy. She has designed AI. It's not just prompting automation. It's not just ChatGPT. It is, and it doesn't help you do the writing. It helps you develop, shape, and finish a novel. And it's been designed for authors in alignment with U.S. copyright law and the Authors Guild guidance for the ethical use of AI. So that's thenoveliststudio.com, and she has something called the AI Creative Writing Academy. So if you yourself are pro AI and I think I'd really like to have it help me in the process of finishing my book, I highly recommend Anna's work. She's done some very thoughtful work to develop tools that help you in ways that are allowed under copyright law and under the guidance from the Authors Guild in the United States. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the reasons why I am not pro you using AI for your novel. Now, I will say that in a world of AI, I think that your creative work is more important than ever. We come to books in order not to feel alone as human beings, in order to have an understanding of what it means to be human in all its incredible, diverse variations. And so I think that your voice and your creativity is needed now more than ever before. And as AI continues to grow and take over, right now it's kind of taking over the corporate world, but there are lots of people who have ChatGPT on their phone and talk to it like a therapist and so on, right? And the more that happens, the more I think the human made objects, creations, books are going to be even more important. So I have had writers say to me, if AI can be used to write a book, then what even is the point of me writing my novel? But AI can't do what you can do. Only you have your experiences, and only you are able to fully commit and create the book that only you can write. And that's the book we need. We need the human book, not the book that was generated through a large language model under AI. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second reason I'm not pro AI is there have been studies. The last study that I saw was done by MIT, and it basically showed that ChatGPT erodes critical thinking skills. And so, they divided people who were 18 to 39 in the Boston area into three groups. And they asked them to write essays using OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google search engine, or nothing at all, right? Three different groups. And then they recorded the writer's brain activity across 32 regions. And they found that of the three groups, ChatGPT users had the lowest brain engagement and consistently underperformed at neural, linguistic, and behavioral level. Over the course of several months, ChatGPT users got lazier with each subsequent essay, often resorting to copy and paste by the end of the study. And so the idea here is that basically your brain is a use it or lose it kind of thing. And so the more you rely on AI for things in your life, your brain is you are sacrificing the development of your brain, right? Our brains are very plastic. We know that they continue to move and evolve over the course of our lives, and we're sacrificing our brain. And that's not something I want to do. I need my brain. I need my imagination. I need the language that exists, that I, the language that I generate, and the language that I generate after I generate that first bit of language and discover, no, that's not quite what I want to say. And I push it even further. And if I rely on ChatGPT for that, then it's a skill that I'm going to lose, and I'm not willing to do that. The other thing is, I've had writers say to me, "Oh, I just use it for brainstorming." I have some tech that I use for brainstorming. It is a notebook and a pen. It's old tech, but it works really well. And I don't then lose the ability to brainstorm by myself, which is something that you need. Like, you don't always have access to ChatGPT. You might be out walking and need to brainstorm something for the second half of Act 2 of your novel. And, you dig into your coat and you find an old receipt and a pencil or a pen, and you can brainstorm. But when you are relying excessively on ChatGPT for that kind of work, then I think that you lose critical thinking, you lose brain development. The other thing that tends to happen with AI is hallucination, right? So you end up with things that are when they give you the information, it sounds plausible, but it can be false, it can be inaccurate, it can be nonsensical. They make up facts, they invent sources, or they misinterpret data. And, I think this is a particular problem if you're writing nonfiction, but it can also be a problem if you're using it to generate ideas for a novel, and it misunderstands the 3-act, the 4-act, the 7-act structure, whatever structure you're using, the hero's journey, and so on. It misunderstands it, and it gives you something that actually results in poor structure. So, maybe they will create large language models, the LLMs, the ones that are in use right now. Maybe they will eventually create some that don't hallucinate. But until they do, what you're getting is not always useful. So, the other thing is, I don't know if you've heard this, but actually, the large language models, when they're threatened, they will act in ethically compromised ways. So, there was a really good test done at Anthropic based on their large language model known as Claude. It was Claude Opus 4. And they got it to act as an assistant at a company. And then they provided it with access to emails implying that it would be taken offline and replaced, and separate emails implying that the engineer that was going to be responsible for removing them was having an extramarital affair. And it's not just Anthropic. So, Anthropic in this case, or Claude, went out and blackmailed the engineer, like literally blackmailed. But it's not just Claude. They will all do it. They will all do it. And so I'm not interested, okay, in large language models and ethically dubious behavior. I just don't want to be a part of it. Um, we all have to make our own choices, and that's one for me. The other issue that I have with AI is the significant environmental impact. So, now, don't get me wrong, I have used AI like everybody else in the world. I have checked out ChatGPT, I have checked out Claude, and I have used them at times, either in my day job or to synthesize something or whatever. And what I find is that the work is not as good as what I could do myself most often. Okay. I was using, I forget which model, but I was using one of the models for my day job to do some analysis. And you were a lot, you were able to choose. So this is a paid account, and I was able to choose what they called research intelligence. And if it had been an actual human research assistant, I would have fired it because the quality of the work just wasn't good. So there's that. But the biggest issue I have really is the one with the environment. So I don't know if you're at all like me, but I have climate anxiety. I worry about climate change. I worry about the world and the planet that we're leaving for our children, and in my case, my grandson. And I worry about the heavy toll that these data centers are taking. So most large scale AI deployments, which are the big ones like ChatGPT and Claude and so on, they're housed in data centers, including those operated by, so-called cloud service providers. And those data centers take a heavy toll on the planet. The electronics that they house rely on a lot of raw materials and a lot of rare earth elements for the microchips, which are often mined in environmentally destructive ways. They produce electronic waste, which contains hazardous substances like mercury and lead. Now, there are other things that we do, right? I'm recording this on a Mac laptop. There were materials that went into making this, but the difference is it's just not on the same level of scale. And I keep this for a long, long time. But the biggest concern I have environmentally is with the amount of water they use during construction and once operational in order to cool the electrical components. So globally, AI-related infrastructure may soon consume 6 times more water than the country of Denmark, which has 6 million people. And I think that's a problem when a quarter of humanity just doesn't already have clean water. Data centers also need a lot of energy, which in most parts still comes from the burning of fossil fuels, which creates planet warming greenhouse gases. So, I don't think that we know, they're saying that in the tech hub of Ireland, the rise of AI could see data centers that account for nearly 35% of the country's energy use this year in 2026. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I get worried about it. And maybe that's my climate anxiety speaking, because I have that generally. But I just like, why do we do this? Why do we need this? Why AI and not a cure for cancer? What's going on there? What is it about our priorities as a race of human beings? Um, so those are the concerns I have with it. As I say, I have used it. So feel free to call me a hypocrite in the comments. I have used it. I do know what it's about. But when it comes to our creative work, I feel really strongly that creative work by human beings, whether that is art, and anytime you're using AI to make art, so people are using them for book covers and different things, you're stealing from other artists. Maybe it's just, that piece of a painting and that piece of a painting and, 500 pieces of a painting that come together to make the art for your book cover. But that was still stolen from someone who, in all likelihood, did not give permission and was not compensated for their work. And I believe that artists, including writers, should be compensated for their work. I also think that the more this rolls on, the more large language models are being used. If you've used any kind of large language models, you know that what you get as your output is a certain amount of wah, 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 right? The Peanuts teacher voice. Like it's just so vague because of the vast data sets that they are drawing from. And so there's such a thing as like ChatGPT rhythm and ChatGPT voice. And I think that if I pick up a book, what I want is the author's voice. I want the author's experience. I want how they see a sunset. I remember a writer by the name of Patrick Kavanaugh, who wrote a book I love called Gaff Topsails. And he described the sun shining on the ocean like a sprinkling of dimes. And I've never forgotten that image. And I don't think that Chatty G can do it. I think that's a very specific lens of one human being. And that's what I'm here for. And I hope that's what you're here for too. So I'm not a fan of using whether it's ChatGPT or Claude to help you write your books. I know there are folks that do it. Again, I would recommend that you check out the Novelist Studio and Anna Del Valle and the work that she's done. She's put some careful thought into it. If it's something that you think is for you, if you don't have the concerns that I have, and you're happy to have it help you structure your book. But when I think about it, I think the book structure it's your creative fingerprint. Only you can structure your novel the way you would structure it. And so if it's coming out of ChatGPT or if it's coming out of Claude in terms of telling you how to structure it, I'm not interested. I want to read the art, the written art of human beings, because the reason I go to books is to understand what it means to be human. I mean, I go to books for other reasons. I go to nonfiction to solve my problems, right? I'm the kind of person that walks into a bookstore and goes, I have a problem. I'm sure there's a book in here. And then I walk out with 8 or 10, right? But I want that human experience. I'm not interested in the experience of robots and algorithms to tell me how to live my human life. And I think that this human experience will only become that much more important. Obviously, I'm not talking about AI for business, right? That's not something I'm talking about. I'm talking about AI in the creative process. And I'm not for it, you guys. I'm just not for it. So I would just encourage you to think about it. I would encourage you to think about, how do you feel about the ethical issues? How do you feel about the climate issues? How do you feel about the kind of work that gets produced in terms of hallucinations and the wah, 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 wah kind of voice? And how do you want to be using it or not use it, depending on, how you feel about it in the end? And just make your own choice there and not just go along because it's the latest greatest thing. So that's what I wanted to say about AI. And I hope it's been helpful. And if you have been doubting yourself because you're like, people are writing books with AI, so what even is the point of me writing mine? That is the point of you writing yours. We need your very human, specific, entirely you voice and entirely you experiences on paper to help us understand what it is to be human, whether that's through fiction, poetry, or nonfiction. So your work, your creative work matters, and we need it now more than ever. Okay, I'll be back again next week with an interview with some writers to help you not feel so alone in your process. Okay, so I'll talk to you again next week. Take care. Bye. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today and for listening all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Resilient Writers Radio Show. While you're here, I would really appreciate it if you'd consider leaving a rating and review of the show. You can do that in whatever app you're using to listen to the show right now, and it just takes a few minutes. Your ratings and reviews tell the podcast algorithm gods that yes, this is a great show. Definitely recommend it to other writers. And that will help us reach new listeners who might need a boost in their writing lives today as well. So please take a moment and leave a review. I'd really appreciate it, and I promise to read every single one. Thank you so much.